Yesterday was Armenian Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's something that has been increasingly marked by some people in the Western world, but disappointingly, hardly anyone in the UK mentioned it at all. Not a single party political leader, as far as I'm aware, said anything about it. There were a few people across the Atlantic in the United States and Canada that did mention it, notably Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Pierre Poilievre, the head of the Conservatives in Canada. I'm not a big fan of his, but he did mention this, and also Vivek Ramaswamy. Julian Assange also mentioned it as something that we needed to remember before he was taken by the British police at the behest of the US government and put in prison. It's something that is not remarked on because certain countries, certain powers that be, don't want people to talk about it. Although we do talk about and remember other genocides that have happened in the 20th century. It's not a pleasant topic to talk about, I know, but every year there is a Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's been rebranded now, the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I guess that's to go along with the organization that set itself up, that calls itself the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, that has made a working definition of anti-Semitism. And if you disagree with, or if you say it's one of the things that they don't like you to say, you get called an anti-Semite. That is marked every year on the 27th of January. And of course, they talk about what everyone learns in school. Everyone learns in school that 6 million Jews died in the Second World War. That was a Holocaust. They've also added to that remembrance of other genocides around the world that have taken place since then, which are also marked on that day, happening in Darfur, in Bosnia, in Cambodia, and I think in and other places as well. Rwanda, sorry, is the one I was trying to think of that skipped my mind just briefly. My apologies for that. Those events are marked on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, but there's no mention made at all of the Armenian genocide, which started in 1915 and went on for 8 years. And in that time, 1.5 million Armenian Christians were killed as the Ottoman Empire came to its final days and fell apart. There's no mention made on that day either of the 20 million plus people who were killed at the hands of the Bolsheviks in Russia and other places in the Soviet Union, including the 7 million, at least, kulaks who died in the liquidation of the kulaks in the Holodomor in the 1930s. Those things are strangely left out and cancelled from being remembered on Holocaust Memorial Day. So it's important that we do remember this and what happened in Armenia. The thing is with this, it's not over. While attention in the mainstream media in the West is focused on terrible happenings in Ukraine and in Gaza, something happened on the 17th of September 2023, just 7 months ago, that has received hardly any attention from the mainstream media or Western politicians at all. That is the Armenian region of Nagorno-Karabakh, otherwise known as Artsakh, which has been an Armenian area for nearly 2,000 years. It was the place of the first Christian church, one of the first Christian churches that was established from the 2nd century onwards. That area was invaded by Azerbaijan and ethnically cleansed, and 120,000 Armenian Christians were forced to move into another part of Armenia as Azerbaijan took it over and forced all of those people out. They haven't stopped. They are now agitating to take over another part of Armenia proper and form a land corridor between Azerbaijan main, an ex-Serbian province, and then create a highway to go between Baku and Turkey. This again would displace more Armenians in their homeland. We need to remember this, and this is something that we can speak up about and we can stop. I wonder if people are not mentioning it because it's Christians who are involved. In the Middle East, we're told, is just a Muslim area. But actually, tragically, the reality is up until the wars in Iraq, the wars in Syria, now the war in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing of Armenia, and so on, there were many, many Christians across the Middle East, but a lot of them have moved out because of actions done by Western nations. And of course, this relates to what's happening in Palestine at the moment, which of course is again the site of some of the oldest churches in the world. The Holy Land itself, the very first churches were started in Jerusalem. With the followers of Jesus himself when he was on the earth in that area. So we can speak up now about the continuing ethnic cleansing, which is a following on from the genocide that happened in Armenia over 100 years ago. And we can speak up about the ethnic cleansing and the early part of a genocide, which we see happening in real time in Gaza. And it's not just Muslims who are affected, it's Christians too, because there are some Palestinians who are Muslim, some Palestinians who are Christian. The Israeli Defense Force has targeted Christian churches, we know, destroying buildings and killing people on the grounds of churches with horrible sniping operations. We can speak up about this. The worst thing we can do is to keep silent. And as Julian Assange tells us to do, speak up about this, because this is something that the powers that be want to keep out of our consciousness and want to silence us about. If the powers that be want to silence us, you can be sure that the right thing to do is speak up and push back against the wickedness in this world.